Seconds here and let it warm up. Welcome to Bon Jovi Discussions. Today I have someone who doesn't need an introduction, but he's going to get one anyway. He's an incredible guitarist all the way from New Jersey. He's the frontman of his own band, Matt O'Ree Band, and he's also played with Bon Jovi back in 2015. Matt O'Ree, everybody. How you doing, Matt?
I'm good, man. Thank you for having me, and I appreciate you guys thinking of me, and it's great to be here.
Yeah, like I mentioned to you a little bit ago, I've had a lot of people message me and ask, "Hey, you should get Matt on." And like I said, I thought about it and wanted to, and that was the perfect time to do it. So I'm really happy you could come on.
Oh, tell them thank you for for requesting me, and um, again, sincerely appreciate people thinking of me.
Sure. Like I said during intro, you're an incredible guitarist. What I really like about your style is that you kind of have that blues type sound to your guitar playing. It's really good.
Sure, thank you. Yeah, growing up, and when I first started playing guitar, I was instantly drawn to blues musicians. Really starting with Jimi Hendrix for me, like most other guitar players. But that was my first bug. I think I got bit by, and then shortly after, Jimmy Page from Led Zeppelin, and then digging into their influences, and this is all pre-internet, so I was going to the library and looking these guys up and figuring out who they mentioned or may have mentioned in interviews of who they you know idolized when they were growing up. So then it became BB King and Muddy Waters and Albert King and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Of course, that's in the list there too of my influences. But that whole blues background is really that's my favorite. That's where I came from, really.
Was there another reason, or was that the reason how you picked up a guitar? What brought you to learning to play it?
My dad played. He still does for fun. Thankfully, he's still here with us, and that was a big influence when I was a kid. And then my brother bringing home "Are You Experienced" from Jimi Hendrix, and that was like even I didn't even really play yet, but even I knew as a kid that was so special, and I didn't understand it, but I just knew that whatever he's doing, I think that's what I want to do, and
Yeah.
that's really how it started. So it was a combination of Jimi Hendrix and my dad.
Wow.
So that's two pretty good starts, I would say.
So has it always been the Matt O'Ree Band, or were you in other bands? Once you started to get into it.
This is obviously through seventh and eighth grade for me, and then through high school I played with friends in high school. We had some high school bands. Not too long after high school is when I started. I started the band as the Blues Hounds,
Okay.
and then it became Matt O'Ree and the Blues Hounds. Then it just became Matt O'Ree, and then eventually, I guess 2009 or 10, I think I changed it to the Matt O'Ree Band. Just because at that point, the band had grown significantly to be such an integral part of the appearance, the performance, the whole thing. So it became it just seemed like a better idea, obviously, to call it a band at that point because it really was, and it still is.
Well, I have to say I saw. Well, it was right after you toured with Bon Jovi and which we're going to get into the whole David Bryan and Bon Jovi thing,
Sure.
but it was right after a little bit after you got back from that tour, and I went and saw you guys in New Jersey, and it was so good.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that show, and wanted we were going to try to go see it last year, some friends and I, and then the pandemic happened,
Yep,
and
everything
so,
got halted.
yeah. So, but I know you were just down in Florida doing some a little bit of touring and stuff, and
Yeah, it was very it was so nice to be back out, on the road and turning some miles and playing for people in person. Down in Florida, I guess they're playing by their own rules down there. So um,
a little continent over there.
it's like the Wild West down there. But it was I have to say as an artist, it was so nice to see people, to play for people, and feel that appreciation once again after being shut down for a while. But it was great. It was just a great time. happy that we got a chance to do it.
Yeah. That's the one thing that's made me miss the most during this pandemic is live shows.
Sure.
Just being able to see live music and connecting with, artists and bands that you love to listen to and, being with your friends. It's just, I miss that. And
I
it's
know.
kind of good to start seeing that normalcy come back.
Yep, and it's obviously the industry itself has taken such a turn
Hmm.
over the years with records not being the big money maker.
Yeah.
But one thing that the internet can't replace, thankfully, is the experience that you have with your friends at a show together and experiencing music, in its purest form, the real thing. you know
Yeah.
and it's that experience of yourself, seeing that, but also the camaraderie of your friends, like, oh my God, that moment was incredible. I'm so glad I shared that with my friends. And that, thankfully, the internet can't replace that.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not a musician, but I couldn't imagine what it's like to have a band and feed off each other and have that chemistry playing a song together and then having seen an audience react to that.
Sure.
That must, that takes you to cloud nine, I can imagine.
It's the reason why we get up in the morning and put on our
Yeah.
shoes and go to go to work. That's it's the greatest thing. And obviously, I was able to walk, with Bon Jovi for a bit and experience that level of that unbelievable, 55, 60, 70,000 people,
Yeah.
all screaming and yelling their heads off. And it was the first time I had ever experienced that. It was the greatest moment for me.
Yeah. And we're definitely gonna get into that. And I can't wait to talk about that 2015 tour. Because that's going to be the big bulk of this. But I wanted to first talk about your Brotherhood album. I know I think you have two albums before that, 88 Miles and Chalk It Up.
And
Those
then
are
I have a few say 88 Miles was the first Blues Hounds record. Uh,
okay.
that was the original band, which was Bob Pantella on drums, who is the drummer of Monster Magnet. I don't know if you're familiar with that band at all.
Yeah.
They had some pretty big hits in the 90s. Space Lord was one of their big hits. But so Bob's on drums, and Eric Collier, who's the other bass player who helped me start the band back then. So that was 88 Miles, then Chalk It Up. Then it was Shelf Life, which was another record I'm pretty proud of. After that is a live DVD CD combo that we did, I guess 2008. And then we did another live record, live in Denver, Colorado. And then Brotherhood came out. So it's a few records in.
I've heard all. I don't think I heard the live Denver one, but I'm going to check that one out.
Sure. And if you can't find a copy, I still have some here.
Okay. But the one album that I really, really love, and anyone that's watching this and has not listened to it, is the Brotherhood album. I mean, I'm not saying this to kiss your butt or anything, but from start to finish, that album is incredible. And just we'll talk about it because you have Bruce Springsteen on there. You have David Bryan, obviously from Bon Jovi,
Sure.
and who was the other one that was Steve?
There's Steve Cropper from
That's
the Blues Brothers, and also Booker T and the MGs, and Otis Redding. I mean, he's played with pretty much everybody under the sun. And also Hubert Sumlin's on there too, and he was Howlin' Wolf's guitar player. So an incredible experience there, meeting him, and oh my God, this is the guy who played the guitar with one of my favorite blues records, the Howlin' Wolf record. It's just incredible to meet him. So we actually had a few more guests on there, and they got deferred to a couple of songs that we're going to be putting out on the next record.
wow.
So that sort of the idea with Brotherhood when we first started was like, hey, we should try to get some special guests because that'll help push the record, of course, and just as a musical, collaboration, would be an absolute honor to share a song with anybody, that has had success in the music industry. So, but as we finished the Brotherhood record, we realized that we didn't quite need the extra songs that had more people on it. So, the whole package of Brotherhood just kind of came together and was like, all right, I guess we'll use those songs on the next record, which is what we're going to do.
When do you expect the new one to come out?
We're definitely hoping for this year, absolutely. So we're gonna have some new singles coming out that'll be a free download on our website, metalreband.com, for just to help promote the website, and we have some extra singles that were cover songs that we cut to put out there to keep fans engaged. And hey, we're still here, and pandemic didn't take us out, so come hang with us and check out some of our new stuff. And then a little bit later this year we'll have the new record out.
Good. Well, I'll keep an eye. I know I follow you on Twitter and Instagram and all that, so I'll keep an eye out on that stuff, and I'll be happy to share it too.
Thank you.
But to the Brotherhood album, what's your favorite song from this album? Just out of curiosity.
Um, I like all of them, honestly. I would say musically, as an artist, I think December Gray is probably my favorite musical composition, I guess.
Okay, that's a good one.
But I love Leave Your Light On. I love Black Boots. My Everything Is You. I mean, it's just, I love the song Life, and also It's Gonna Be All Right.
See, I love the message, the lyrics behind Life and It's Gonna Be All Right. And I think those, lyrically, those are probably my two favorites on the album.
I would say so too. That the song Life was the last thing that I had just finished writing it. So the Brotherhood wasn't recorded yet when I left for the Bon Jovi tour. We did that when we got back, and
okay.
We were sort of in a rush because I wanted to get it recorded and finished before I got back, so they could be mixing while I was away. But it's like no matter what record you start, it's always longer than you think it's going to be. That's just the way it goes, and it's being on a limited budget is the other whole too. So but Life was like the last song that I had written, and that's what it was about. That it's that moment of, oh my God, I just got the gig with Bon Jovi, and we're leaving in a month, and that was the last song that I wrote.
Wow. Well, you mentioned the album wasn't finished until after the Bon Jovi tour. So was there anything that you kind of took away from playing with them that you kind of brought to your album?
Oh, sure.
As far as recording it?
Absolutely. Just playing next to Phil X, every night, and his incredible musicianship and guitar playing and aggressive playing is just over the top. It's incredible, and I learned a lot by watching him and playing with him, and I was like, I need more of that in my own playing.
Yeah.
Coming from a blues background, blues musician might not have, not everybody, but you might not see that aggressive kind of guitar playing. So I tried to put some of that in the recording too, for sure. So that was definitely. I never told Phil that was he was an influence on that record.
Yeah, Phil is he's one of the best guitar players that I've ever heard. I mean, he had his own, obviously with the Richie replacement and stuff, but he's added such a style and charisma, talent to the band,
Sure.
And he's incredible. So there's 3 songs on this album. Before we get into that, I kind of would like to talk about like how you because David was kind of your connection to Bon Jovi.
Correct.
If you want to share your story about how you kind of met him and all that.
Yeah, it was probably back in, I want to say 2012, I guess. There's a local pub not far from us that has shows and has bands, and it's a tight little knit community, and always a great show. It'd be slam packed. We played every first Friday of the month for like 8 years. And it was really like our home, residency when we were off the road with the Metal Band. So one night we're playing, and an older guitar student of mine who I hadn't seen in a long time walks in the front door, and the stage was like right by the front door, so anybody who came in, I would see them, and his name is Brad. Brad comes walking in, and he's like, "Wow, I haven't seen him in a long time," and his eyes light up and gives me a big smile, and he's like, "Oh my God, good to see you." And because he had stopped taking lessons, but we had such a good connection as friends, and right behind him was David Bryan, and I
Wow.
was like, ah, I didn't know Brad knew David, you know, and I didn't know David either, but obviously he's pretty recognizable, you know.
Yeah.
So he walks in with like an entourage of people. So we took a set break, and I'm talking to Brad, and Brad's like, I want you to meet David, and so forth. And I was like, oh, David, we actually previously met at a wedding many years ago, and I'll never forget it too, because I was standing at the bar getting a drink during this wedding or wedding reception, and David was standing next to me, and it was just the two of us standing at the bar. And I guess because I had long hair, David just kind of turned and said, "Hey," stuck his hand out and said, "Hey, I'm David. Nice to
Wow.
meet you." And I was like, "Oh, nice to meet you. I'm Matt." And the reason why I'm telling that story is because it always sticks out to me when somebody who's famous introduces themselves, thinking that not everybody knows who they are, and
Yeah.
and that humbleness always stands out to me because that's just how I am as a person too. So I told David the story, and he laughed, and and I was like, "Hey, Dave, if you want to sit in for a song, you're more than welcome." And he did that night at Jamie's was the name of the venue. So, um, and I've always told this story many of times that from the first note that we played, it was like we had been friends for 30 years. And it's the power of music, that music can bring together two complete strangers, and you're not strangers anymore.
Exactly. What was the first song that you played with him?
I don't think I think it might have.
Was it
Gosh,
a Bon
I
Jovi song or?
I can't remember. It wasn't a Bon Jovi song. I think we did like a James Brown, like
Okay.
blues funk version of a James Brown song, from what I remember. It was so long ago, and we played so
Yeah.
many songs together. I can't quite remember, but I think it was something along that nature.
And I also wanted to touch on how at the end you said how music brings people together, and that's the absolute truth. Especially like in this Bon Jovi fan base. I know people from all over the world just from meeting them at shows or through the fan club or social media, and some of them are my closest friends that I talk to every single day, and so that's amazing. That's the power of music. Music brings people together. You know.
Absolutely, and there's good sides and bad sides to the internet, and this is one of the good sides, is that it's brought you and I together. So it's it's all related, And one thing that the world absolutely positively has to have right now is music, because with
Absolutely.
everybody fighting with each other, and it's just crazy when you turn on the Facebook and it's like, enough already, you
I
know.
know it just makes you want to turn it off.
I know.
Even the news.
Oh my God, forget it. Yeah. So hopefully, live shows will be uh, coming back sooner than later, because I think the world needs that.
Absolutely, I agree with you. So it seems like since you and David had met, did you know anybody in the band before? Did you know since you're from Jersey, did you know John or ever met John before you met David, or David
No,
was kind of your
ironically, because I mean, we're all musicians in this area of New Jersey. Monmouth County is the county that we live in. It's not that big, so you would figure after all these years, I would have run into some of the other guys. But I met Richie many years ago and was very brief. I was an intern at a recording studio, and he came in to do some tracks for somebody's record. But that had to be '92. It was a long time ago.
wow.
Um, so David's really the only person that I met. Obviously, I know Bruce too, Springsteen. Um, but yeah, surprisingly, with as small as the community really is, I didn't meet David. I didn't meet John until I had my little audition at his house.
Wow, which we're definitely going to get into that. But with David, I've watched some YouTube videos over the years of you guys. One of the my favorite performances that I've seen with you two is the way you guys played "Bad Medicine"
Yes.
on
Okay.
stage, which is a
Yeah.
Bon Jovi song, and I love that.
Yeah.
I thought that was really good. And then your version of "Wanted." I think there was a performance at the Stone Pony, and you guys were playing "Wanted," and David was singing "Wanted" there live.
Yeah.
And the way that I love that it's played, it kind of has like a like a little bit of a country sound to it, but with like a heavy rock sound to it, and just I don't know, it's good. I don't know how to explain it, but
Definitely a little bit different for sure.
yeah, and that's why I've heard Wanted There live a million times. I've seen it live a dozen, a lot of times, and so it's kind of good to see another band interpret it and have a different sound to it, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
There's three songs that are on your Brotherhood album that features David Bryan. My Everything Is You, Leave Your Light On.
Correct. Yep.
And then what's the third one? December Gray.
December Gray. Yeah. He on December Gray he played a mellotron. A mellotron is an old '60s uh, keyboard that the Beatles used extensively. So it's a tape machine,
Okay.
and when you hold down the key, it plays the tape of that note of the sound that's on the tape.
Okay.
It's pretty ingenious. And Mellotron is a company that's back in business too, and they actually make a tape version that you can buy for your studio. Very expensive, obviously, but on the tape is the sounds of violin strings and flutes and voices. So you have three different things you can get out of it. So there's the bridge section of December Gray is a Mellotron, and that's David playing that for me.
Wow. My favorite would probably, all three are good, but my favorite would probably be Leave Your Light On. And what I really love about that song is, hearing David playing the beginning, the piano,
Yeah.
and then, and it definitely if you're like a true diehard Bon Jovi fan, David's style and his sound, and
Sure.
that screams David Bryan.
It does,
Um,
yeah.
and what else I love about the song is the way the drums and the verses come into the song after David plays. That's what makes you really enjoy the song.
Yep, it was so nice too because obviously with our style with our band is more of that blues rock thing. So Zeppelin meets Hendrix. I mean that's the best analogy, or put ZZ Top in there, and I guess you got a pretty good mix.
Yeah.
But having someone like with David's background, which is obviously a more modern pop rock thing that he's had unbelievable success over the last 30 years.
Mhm.
Hearing his feel on piano mixed with that sort of southern rock thing. It was such a great collaboration, and I couldn't have thought of anybody more perfect to play piano on that, and thankfully he was able to do it.
Absolutely. What was it? I mean, what was it like to record those three songs? Did you guys record it together in the same studio, or did he do his part and send it in, or how did that work? If you don't mind me asking.
Brotherhood, believe it or not, went through a couple of different changes. I actually have 1,000 copies of a previous version of Brotherhood.
Okay.
And when I finished it, I liked it and I didn't like it. And then every time I listened to it, it leaned more on the side that I wasn't finished with it. Like I wasn't completely happy with it. So right before the Bon Jovi thing, I hooked up with my old producer, who did a lot of work on 88 Miles and also on Chalk It Up and Shelf Life too. And I sent him a copy of it, and he's like, "Hold up, before you release that, let's sit down and talk about it." And I knew what he was going to say. He was hearing the same thing I was hearing, that it wasn't quite there yet. So actually wound up recording the whole record over.
Okay.
And the band played it together live in the studio, but we kept it to the same click, the same tempo, so all the previous recorded tracks, like David's piano, could still go in with the recording.
Okay. So were the David Bryan songs recorded before the 15 tour or after?
His parts were done before that. Yeah, so all that was done. Yeah, all David's parts. Actually, I shouldn't say that. Leave Your Light On was done before that. My Everything Is You was done after the Bon Jovi tour.
Okay. So you kind of had the idea of having him on that album before the
Correct. Yes.
started and stuff.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah. That was it. So when we were working on Brotherhood, it was like, hey, David, would you be interested in playing on a song or two on our record? I got Springsteen on, and I got this and that, and he was like, oh yeah, that sounds interesting. So that collaboration, and that recordings started before the Bon Jovi tour.
Wow. Well, they're a good song. Then the last one I want to bring up too, because people should listen to it if they haven't, is "My Everything Is You," which
Yeah.
is my second favorite album or song on the album. And I love, one of the things that stands about this whole album in general is the guitar. I love the guitar riffs and just the whole sound in general. And the guitar and verses and "Everything Is You" is just phenomenal. Especially in that intro.
The main guitar riff, the intro you're talking about, David wrote that riff.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, so during our friendship, so 2012 to to now really. So as our friendship grew from that first night of playing together, he and his wife Lexi started hiring my band to do private parties for them at their house. So that's sort of how our friendship escalated. Okay, we became better friends and better friends and better friends, and now we're best friends, really. So through that time was like, hey, we should write a song together, and David also wrote a song for my wife Erin on her record, which is just titled Erin. They have the name just fled in my head, but they have a beautiful song that David wrote. I have to send it to you. The name flew out of my head at the moment, but it's a really beautiful song that David wrote, and Erin sings the song. It's incredible.
Yeah, I definitely want to check that one out, especially with David on it. One thing I really love about this song, not now that I know he wrote the riffs to it too, that's really cool. Is I love seeing it live. Obviously, I never got to see you guys live with David. I almost went to that. You did a drive-through concert last year. I think October it was.
Yes.
And I was going to go to that.
Oh,
and then
so that actually got rained out twice.
Oh, so it never happened.
Never happened. So the first time it got rained out, we went for our rain date, which was 2 days later. That got rained out. We tried to reschedule it, and it was just so many moving pieces because it was also part of our local PBA, which is the Police Benevolent Association. My mother worked for our local town here, Homedale. She worked for the police department for a long time, so I'm good friends with a lot of the police officers and the police chief and everything. So we've done a lot of benefits with them, to help raise money for, new police cars or new vests or whatever they need. And so they were backing that show. So there were so many moving pieces to the show that we couldn't reschedule it. But we're looking at doing, I think, May 1st, which is not announced yet because it's still not definite. But sometime in May, let's say,
Okay.
that drive-in show hopefully is going to happen again. And hopefully it'll actually go.
And I have to ask you, as a musician, how do you feel about playing in front of, I remember when they proposed this idea a year ago, bands doing drive-in concerts. How do you feel as a musician playing in front of vehicles and not like a sea of people, a crowd? How do you feel about that?
I'm just thrilled to play for anybody. So I'll take whomever wants to come. But we did a drive-in concert with a keyboard player that we worked with for a bit named John Ginty. He's in the Allman Betts band, which is sort of the new version of the Allman Brothers. It's the Allman Brothers Kids, and the band is fantastic. And we did a drive-in show with him. Let's see, that was last spring, I think. And it was weird seeing just cars out there. But
Yeah.
again, it's just thankful to play for anybody because of the current state of the world.
Yeah, that's true. I guess I would take it over not seeing a show, but
Sure.
me personally, I just want to be in a crowd of people and throw my hands in the air and sing along, and
Yep.
that's to me is a true concert, obviously.
Sure. And
But
I mean, the thing with our drive-in show, if it goes through for May, you'll be able to get out of your car and have a beach chair or lawn chair, and you can sit down. So you can still be, you don't have to stay in your car, which is great.
oh, good, good, good. Well, I will look, for details on that May show, and hopefully I can make it out there. Like I said, I was gonna get tickets and everything last year. I couldn't get away from work, and then I didn't know it was rained out, so I
Yeah,
lived for the last 6 months with regret of not going. But now I know that it didn't happen.
I know it was a defeating moment because I never give up, ever. Like so, and it
Yeah,
was just like I think I actually have to well, let's not say give up. Let's say postpone it. So
Postponed. There we go. So let's go into the big thing here. Let's talk about that 2015 tour.
sure.
So obviously this is when Bon Jovi released Burning Bridges, which was just at the time was an album to fulfill the record company's contract, and that's when John was having his dispute with Island Records, Mercury. And so they did like a little, it wasn't really a promo tour, but it was just kind of like what was it, five, 6 shows they did in like Southeast Asia or something.
It was supposed to be 12, and I think it only wound up becoming 11. I think.
11. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll let you talk here. How did that come about for you? Obviously, you replaced Bobby Bandiere, who had played rhythm guitar prior. So how did you kind of get involved?
Um, Obviously, Bobby, didn't want to do that tour for whatever reasons. John needed somebody, and actually, I think David was like, "Hey, I think John needs someone for this tour. Would you be interested in auditioning?" And who wouldn't?
Who turned that down?
I know. I mean, even just the opportunity just to meet John and just chat with him is life changing.
Yeah. So you mentioned earlier that you went to his house. Was that the one in Red Bank?
Correct. Yes. Yep.
Okay. So what was that like to go there and audition and meet in John? I mean, was the rest of the band there too, like Phil and Tico and?
No, it was just me. David brought me over there because I didn't quite know where it was, honestly. So with me, David and John, and John answers the door, and seemed like nobody was home. At least I didn't see anybody else. So, but it was surreal. It was again so nice to finally meet John after all these years, and he was as nice and as cool as can be. And I had like a bunch of cases. Bought a couple guitars and a little practice amp, and he opened the door and he laughed at me and he's like, "Put all that stuff back in your car and just bring the acoustic." He was, what did he say? He said, I already watched some videos of you. I know you can play your butt off. Come on in.
Wow.
And it was just cool that, like, wow, John actually watched videos of me. So anyway, so we got in, just started chatting, and we're just chatting some more, and then we jammed a little bit on the acoustic guitar, and we sang a little bit, and that was, you know, it was really casual, the most casual audition I've ever had.
Wow. So what songs were they Bon Jovi songs that you played the audition with or?
I think we played Bed of Roses a little bit, like the chorus of it, and then I think I sang a Clapton song for him. I think
Okay.
I'm pretty sure, yeah. And then we just chatted some more, and it was again very casual, and he's like, all right, well, I'll keep you posted and let you know if it's gonna work out. And then, so I went home, and I mean I was nervous as all can be, obviously, because I mean previous to that I've only done my own band. I mean I've played with other people and other gigs and other shows, but I've never actually joined somebody else's band.
Yeah. So how long did John leave you hanging on the line to get an answer?
It was probably a week or two, and then he called me up, and I was sitting right outside our doorstep talking to my neighbor, and he's like, "Hey, you still want to go on tour?" And I'm like, "Yeah."
What kind of question is that? Yeah, who would turn that down?
I know, and so, and I said the same thing to John at the end of the tour. I said, "Hey, man, if you ever need me, I got your back. I'll be here 1,000%. And if you don't need me, I'm just happy to know you. I'm still here. I'm still your friend."
Yeah. So after you got that call that you were going to be touring with them, did the whole band eventually come to New Jersey and rehearse for this tour, or how did you exactly
They
learn
they
to
did.
play everything?
They did. Yes, correct. Yes. So we wound up rehearsing at John's house at his studio for I think 4 days, and then that ended on a Thursday, and Tuesday we were gone.
Okay. So what was it like to, meet the rest of the band, meet Tico and Phil and Hugh and all that? What was that like
I,
for you?
I, I mean, again, the nicest people. Tico was so cool. Hugh was just a sweetheart, you know, and everybody's just so nice, and they were very supportive, and hey, don't, you know, don't do this, don't do that kind of stuff, because I, you know, there wasn't much to, you know, nobody told me what I'm not supposed to do or supposed to do, you know,
Yeah.
I don't, I'm brandy new, you know, so they were very supportive.
Good. Well, so how many songs did you have to? Obviously, you probably had to learn a lot of these songs
Yeah,
prior to the rehearsing. So, how many songs did you have to learn?
I think it was 44. Yeah, and it was, I had a month to do it, and it was, you know, a lot of songs I had never heard before. You know, growing up again around here in the '80s, I was in high school. Bon Jovi was like, you couldn't get away from it if you wanted to. It was everywhere, which was a
Yeah,
great thing. So, you know, a lot of the bigger songs, you know, like obviously Wanted, you know, um, there's no way you could have not known it, you know,
yeah,
as a musician growing up at that time, because it was the most current music. So, you know, some of the stuff I knew, but not, certainly not 44 songs.
wow.
Yeah.
So, so when the so 44 songs, I bet, looking from those, watching those shows and the set list and stuff, I think, maybe only 20 of those songs made it to the
Yeah.
list.
It was between 20 and 22. And, you know, I always wondered if John, you know, I never asked him, but if he, you know, why we stuck to those 22. But those were some of his biggest hits, obviously, you know,
Yeah.
and the show was really starting to come together, you know, with a new member, you know, and personality and everything else too. So maybe John just felt more comfortable with just doing those, you know. So, and it was a short run, so I guess John didn't deviate too much from that set list.
Yeah, which is surprising because prior to 2015, under this house tour, they kind of set to the same set list almost. But one of the things I really loved about seeing them live, and I've been to 52, 53 Bon Jovi shows, and so the set list would always change. You never knew what they were going to open up with or what kind of surprises. As a diehard myself, you want to hear the deep stuff.
Yep,
And so, probably for the reason why he did 44 songs is just you never knew what's, John might feel wild as the wind one night and say, hey, let's play that.
sure.
So that might be why. But it's so going into the tour. So what was it like to see? Because you guys went to Southeast Asia, Jakarta, and all those places. What was it like to? Have you ever been there before? Or
I've never been that far east, and you know, I didn't see too much except the hotel, the plane, and the show, really.
yeah,
But there was a when we were in Jerusalem, I got a chance to see some of that, which was great. You know,
wow,
so I saw some of the places in China too, which was awesome. Singapore was great because I got a chance to see a little bit of. We played right after the Formula One racing, so right where our dressing rooms were, like the cars were like, you know, whizzing by. You
oh
know,
my,
it was so neat to, you know, me being a car fan and a hot rod fan.
yeah,
It was so neat to hear those engines, you know, like the way they really sound, because I've only heard them on TV, you
yeah.
know. So those parts were great, but most of the time I just was really in the hotel room, like studying songs and refreshing parts and making sure I didn't forget anything.
Yeah. So I don't know what the time difference is there, but obviously, you're on Eastern Standard Time here, so you're used to playing at what, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night.
Sure.
I don't know what the time difference was. I don't know if you remember or know. But I'm sure it's quite different, so I don't know what was it like playing at a different time that you're used to.
Well, actually, I think the shows all went off about 8 o'clock, so that wasn't any that much. I mean, here, yeah, usually we go on at 10 or 10:30, but it depends on the show. You know,
Okay.
we're actually playing this Saturday at a place called the Vogel. It's a new theater in Red Bank. It's part of the Count Basie Theater, and our show starts at 8 o'clock. So I'm not unused to that. I guess to answer your question, it was more. It took a few days to get used to the time difference of being on a whole different, you know, schedule. So when I would finish the show and we would get back to the hotel, I would already have, and I would pick up the Wi-Fi at the hotel. I would be getting pictures on my phone from my wife back here that was watching people post pictures on the other side of the world. So it was like this whole weird circle thing that was happening, and it was like, oh my god, that just happened. How are you getting these pictures? And she's like, oh, somebody was just posting them. So
Jeez.
she was up either super late or super early, depending on how you look at it, to get some of these pictures and send them back to me.
Wow. My next question I want to ask you is, so you're used to playing, clubs and bars and, theaters and, outdoor events. So
Yeah.
what was it like going from, I don't know how many people that would be, but all the way up into the Bon Jovi tour and having 50,000 or more people in front of you watching you play? I mean, what was that like going from New
It's
Jersey to?
especially doing it with John too. It was a childhood dream. I mean, I never thought I'd play with Bon Jovi. But I always hoped that I would play that size venues. And
Yeah.
when I would go, I saw Bon Jovi in '89, I think. And anytime I go to a huge concert, like I always like to look around the audience just to see it. And I always wondered what it was like from the performer's point of view. And
Yeah.
I always hoped I would get to that. So we finished our rehearsal Thursday. I played that little pub Jamian's on Saturday, and then Tuesday I'm on a plane with John.
Wow.
So up to that point, I really couldn't talk about what was going on, but a little bit of rumors were spreading that I might have gotten a gig with John, and so that Saturday I'm like, well, they might as well hear it from me, and we're playing Jamian's, and it was I mean jam packed. It was 200 people squeezed in this tiny little bar, elbow to elbow, and at that moment I'm like, well, I guess word got out. So I got on the microphone and I'm like, well, if anybody had heard that I might have gotten a gig with Bon Jovi, you might as well just hear it from me. It's true. And then the whole place just exploded, and everybody's like high fiving each other and yelling and screaming. And I mean, the bartenders are pouring, shots as long as the bar, and everybody's, drinking. And it was just, an incredible moment, in our little hometown. So then the next show is 55,000 people. So from 200 to 55,000, it's hard to find words to describe it. It really is. And even like during this COVID downtime, and one thing people don't talk about is probably the depression that musicians go through because you can't perform your art. It's like telling Picasso you can't paint.
Yeah.
So, even on some of the most depressing days of sitting around, I still have to remind myself, hey, I did something that nobody else will get the chance to do.
Exactly. I mean, it's a one in a million chance to ever get to play in that big of a band,
Yep.
their stature. And the thing, I couldn't imagine how nerve-wracking that would have been though to, have those, because John, you know, greatest front man, best band,
Yeah.
so he's got a lot of expectations, his expectations are high. So I mean, that must have been nerve-wracking to make sure that you got every part right. And I mean, but watching you play on these YouTube videos, I mean, it looks like you got it. You look confident, like you knew what you're. Obviously you did know what you were doing, but it showed that you did great.
Oh, I gave it hell.
Yeah. And one thing that I really loved about these shows too was that there was a lot of fun. It seemed like just like a fun show.
And
And like the way that you and Phil come together, like your guys' chemistry were just phenomenal. And especially like that's what the water made me, the outro to that. The
yeah,
Keep the Faith outro was incredible.
that was
And
fun.
I just blew me away.
It was. Thank you. It was so again just so great to work with those guys. But all the pictures that people were seeing back home, and across the world, they were true, honest photographs. I mean, that was the fun that we were all having together. So I was happy that it was like that, because sometimes it's not like that. Sometimes it is acting. You got to be pretend like you're having a good time. But that was absolute honesty. And we were all having a great time.
Wow. What was your I want to ask you what was your hard what was the hardest song to learn and what was your favorite song to play?
Hmm. I definitely like "It's My Life."
Mm-hmm.
I really had a good time playing that, and probably Keep the Faith because uh, me being more of that improvising guitar player of my heroes of Clapton and Hendrix and Page, those guys never played anything the same way twice.
Wow. Yeah.
And Bon Jovi is a little bit more scripted. That's just the way the music is.
Yeah.
But Keep the Faith, I was able to stretch out a little bit, and improvise a little bit, which was nice of John to give me that freedom because again, that music is more of a scripted thing. That's just how it is. That's how the song goes. That's how it always goes.
Right.
So what he gave me a little bit of freedom knowing my background, which I thought was very nice of him.
Right. And I'm glad you talk about scripted and stuff. And we talk about the outro. There's a video on YouTube, and I think it's so stupid, but there's like a comparison between I think you, John Shanks, and Bobby Bandiera.
I saw it. It was. I mean, hey, I'm just thankful once again that somebody remembered me and put me in that video. I put my part in the video, and it's cool that somebody did that. But obviously comparing, it's like apples and oranges. It's like it's
Right.
two different styles, two different musicians. It's like you're comparing paintings again, once again. So,
Yeah.
but hey, I was just thrilled that somebody remembered me. That's all.
Yeah. And that video wasn't negative. It's just like my whole feel is that you can't compare two different guitars. What the beauty of music is, and I mentioned this earlier, like your guys' version of Wanted Dead or Alive. It's different than Bon Jovi's, but it's still so good. And so, as a guitar player, there's a lot you can play differently, and that's what I really liked about your sound with the outro to That's What the Water Made Me and Keep the Faith. It had a little different sound to it, and I loved it.
Sure.
You know,
Thank you. Thank you.
and I won't get into the whole Richie thing, but it's like the whole thing that people expect Phil to sound just like Richie. You can't.
Right.
Everyone has their own different feel and sound
Yep.
and all
And
that.
there's something so special about Richie and the time that I saw him. He's a phenomenal musician, incredible singer, amazing songwriter. It's like
Yeah.
those shoes are so huge that nobody could fill that, and you're not supposed to.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, it's a disappointment to fans that love that sound when Richie was there, but it just didn't work out, and he's not there. Hopefully, someday in the future, maybe they can do something together again. But
Yeah.
in the meantime, Phil's playing his ass off.
Yeah.
He's an incredible musician.
Exactly.
So you're still getting a great show. There's no reason to not go.
Absolutely. It's from 2013 on, it's a great continue. When you played when Phil played, having Shanks on,
Yep.
it's evolving, and I love seeing that continuation.
And even for myself too, I've lost band members over the years, and some fans don't come anymore, and I'm like, really? Like, don't you want to see what happens next? But some people get so hung up on the familiarity of what they fell in love with. It's
Yeah.
that it's that hot girl or the hot car. It's like, don't change anything. But that's not how you create music. Creating music is supposed to change. You're supposed to play with other people. You
Yeah.
know, you're supposed to play with other people that are better than you to make you better.
Yeah. It's all about evolving. Especially,
Absolutely.
I'm sure you can say as an artist, you have to evolve.
Sure.
A couple of things I want to talk about the tour was what was it like being on the jet with the guys? I mean, like, what did you guys do or talk about, or what was that like?
Um, some good laughs for sure, but it was, at that point, everyone's just exhausted. Most people would just kind of nod it off and, or through a movie on your laptop and just, watch, just to kill the time. I was usually still thumbing through my notes, just studying his
Yeah.
songs. But it was my first time on a private jet too, which was great. It was just wonderful. It was awesome.
So, what was your big, and we talked about this with your Brotherhood album, how it kind of influenced you to write and record on that. But what do you think your biggest takeaway was playing with Bon Jovi? As an artist, as a guitarist, and front
Tough,
man.
tough to boil it down to just one thing, but what I can say is, standing next to John on a stage that big with a crowd that big and watching him command that audience was the biggest learning experience I could ever have. I mean, I could every night I was just in awe of watching him do that,
Yeah.
and it's like, and thinking to myself, how does he do that? So it was an absolute learning experience for me across the board. Playing with Phil, that aggression, that entertainment, playing with David, of course. I would play with David every day of my life if I could. Playing
Yeah.
with Tico's drumming was just absolutely the best I've ever heard. I mean, he's just an absolute perfection master.
Yeah.
And Hugh. I mean, all of it. It was just an absolute home run for me, and an absolute learning. It was like going to school. Crash course.
Yeah. To reiterate, I couldn't imagine what it was like to be in your shoes and like playing guitar and on a stage in front of 50,000 people and then looking over and there's John Bon Jovi and Tico and David and so on. Like, I
Crazy.
mean, unbelievable.
It's still surreal that of course, it's been some time since that's happened, and now I'm focused on what I'm doing at the moment or today. And when you say it like that, it reminds me of like looking over and seeing his white mic stand. It's like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm here. And
Yeah.
I said it before. As you evolve as a musician, you want to play with people that are better than you.
Yeah.
And that was my another education for me, because here I am on stage with people that I consider better than me. And that's it brought me up to a whole new level. And when I got back playing with people around town here at home, it was like, wow, I can't believe what I learned, that these people will never get that.
Yeah.
You know,
That's
it was a blessing.
I wanted to ask one more thing about the tour too
Yeah.
before we conclude was sound check. So like how many songs would you guys do during sound check and how, just tell me about sound check, I guess. What was
That
that
was
like?
the first sound check was my favorite for the story. So we were in Jakarta, Indonesia. We were there a day early, I think, and we walk out to the stage, and it's the biggest stage I've been on. Not quite a football field, but not quite half of a football field. It was huge.
Yeah.
So I'm looking at the empty stadium, and I feel a warm hand on my shoulder for a minute. And I turn around, and it's John. And John just whispers to me. He's like, "It's just like any other gig." And and how cool of him to do that, to ease my nerves, because he knows he just went into battle with an unproven weapon.
Yeah.
He,
That's
he doesn't he doesn't know really what I'm capable of on stage, or what I'm going to do, or he has no idea. He just hopes that I'm going to do the right thing. And of course, I would never do the wrong thing, because that's just who I am. But how cool was it of him to say that to me? It made me feel 1,000 times better. But what I want, and I said, okay, I said thanks, and what I really wanted to say was like, no, it's not. I just played for 200 people back home in a sweaty bar. This
yeah.
this is not the same. But to be truth to his statement, it actually is the same.
Okay.
And in some ways, because you're still entertaining, you're still putting on a show, and that's what we do as musicians. It doesn't matter how big the audience. But it was overwhelming when I looked out. It was empty, and I'm just like, oh my God, here I am. Like I finally made it. I could call all the kids back from high school and say, ha, I made it.
Take your picture with the band and stuff, which I'm sure you have a picture with you and the whole band together somewhere.
We have a bunch, but it's stuff that what happens on the
Absolutely.
I can't share that with the world. But
Yeah.
there was moments on stage where it was like all the cell phone, and back in the day it would be lighters. All the cell phone lights were up, and I'm just looking at the audience, and I'm like, man, I wish my friends at home. I wish there was a camera going through my eyes that they could see this back home, because it was to stand on stage next to John and see all that it was breathtaking. It's just the greatest moment ever.
Well, thank God for you two. You're able to relive it and
Yes,
see
correct.
it.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
But back to Soundcheck real quick. So how many songs did you guys like kind of play, or what were those songs that you would play during Soundcheck?
It varied. It's usually a song or two because with today's technology of digital mixing consoles, all the settings get saved every night anyway. So
Okay.
they can even run a recording of the night before through the PA system, and everything's going to be the same anyway. So you don't even have to be there for sound check.
Oh wow.
Yeah, the technology in that respect has massively grown. So I think there was only like a few sound checks that we had to do.
Wow. That's
Most of it was like, okay, here we are. Let's go play the show.
wow. Nice. Well, I think that I appreciate you coming on today. It was kind of great to finally talk to you and talk about the tour and all that. And I wanted to say thank you for coming on.
No problem. Again, thank you for having me, and it's an honor to be on your show. Thank you.
And if you want to say your Twitter and Instagram handle so people can follow you and then um, be tuned into what's to come with you if you want
Sure,
to.
absolutely, yeah. I mean, the best place to find us is our website, mattlereband.com, and then it's at mattlereband is our other handles. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, Matt. I really appreciate it, and I hope you stay safe. And I hope to see you play in May.
I hope so too, man. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Matt.
No problem.